Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. If you're preparing for an Azure DevOps interview, here are 5 real interview questions with concise answers. So let's get started. In case if the interviewer asks, how do you manage Azure infrastructure using Terraform? You can simply answer like I use Terraform to provision Azure resources such as resource groups, virtual networks, AKS clusters, key vault and storage accounts. The Terraform states are generally stored remotely in the Azure storage and they're used for collaboration and consistency. This ensures infrastructure is version controlled. So basically, what it means is like the Terraform state file, you're highlighting that it is storing remotely in Azure storage accounts, and we are using the feature of state locking for team collaboration. And what is the benefit? It will give us info. It will this approach will has an infrastructure as a code will give us consistency, repeatability across environments. This is how I would explain, like there would be a code, then it will be running through the Azure DevOps pipeline. It would go through the Terraform apply command, and then with that apply command, it would go to resource groups and create resource groups, AKS clusters, key vaults, and then the data will be gone to Azure Monitor for monitoring these resources. When would you choose Azure Container Apps over Azure Kubernetes services? The answer would be I would choose Azure Container Apps for simple microservices, APIs, and event driven workloads where Kubernetes management isn't required. So, AKS is preferred when we have advanced Kubernetes features, custom networking, or large scale container orchestration requirements. So, the containerized app, if you are going for Azure containerized app, it can be used for simple APIs, whereas the Azure Kubernetes services are used in case of complex apps. Generally, we go for microservices, Azure Container Apps. If we need custom networking, then we prefer AKS. The Azure Container Apps are event driven. However, AKS has service mesh. And because we are using it in a simplest form, we are having less management over here. And in AKS, we would require the full Kubernetes control. Have you used OpenTelemetry in production? I've used OpenTelemetry to collect application metrics, traces, and logs from containerized workloads. The telemetry data was exported to Azure Monitor and Application Insights, which enabled end-to-end observability, faster troubleshooting, and performance monitoring across distributed systems. This is how the process is. Example, there is a multi-tier microservice architecture here. Then we have the telemetry SDK from where we get the telemetry collector which receives and processes and then exports the data. We can have the traces, metrics and logs here which will directly go to the Azure Monitor application insights from where we will be able to view this in the form of alerts, data, dashboards, and the different graphical representation along with the data. So we can further troubleshoot and do the root cause analysis for any errors that are occurring. Have you ever worked with Azure AI services and for what use cases? So we have explored Azure OpenAI, Azure AI Search and cognitive services for chatbot development, document research, content generation and intelligent automation solutions. So whenever there is a user request, it will go through the AI services, Azure AI services. And then we have the Azure OpenAI, AI search and cognitive services. This will indeed help with the business application. This was a previous question actually which went earlier which we had skipped. So I will go ahead and answer that. What is your expertise with Kubernetes deployment and scaling? So I have deployed applications on AKS using deployment services, config map secrets. For scaling, we use horizontal pod autoscaler and cluster autoscaler to handle traffic spikes while maintaining application availability. This is how the process flows. There is a user traffic. It goes through the load balancer. Then it goes to the Kubernetes services, from where it is gone through the pods which are there, like the pod 1 which has particular containers, pod 2, pod 3. And then we have the horizontal pod autoscalers which are used for the scaling purposes. For example, pod 4, pod 5 has been scaled using the horizontal pod autoscaler. This is how you can explain this question. Which one of these questions have you been asked in an interview? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more Azure DevOps interview preparation content. If you like this video, like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.